All right. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back to Wisdom and Wanderlust. My name is Michael Bennett, co-founder of ExploreX, and on behalf of our entire team, we are super excited to have you with us today. Today, we have the great pleasure of chatting with one of our friends and colleagues and mentors and advisors and many other things, roles that she plays, Maria Baltazi. We're going to talk more about mindfulness, meditation, and happiness, and how to create your own inner sanctuary in life. Before we jump into that, a few reminders. If you are new to our community, welcome, and please feel free to check out our website, explore-x.com, where you can learn a lot more about who we are, what we do, and what makes us so special. We also recently launched and will be adding more benefits to our traveler community. So learn more about that, see what some of these benefits are and how you can really engage even now when many of us don't have the opportunity to travel. Go to our website and there is a join the community link in the navigation, or you can just go to explore-x.com/join. And as always, we love talking to our friends and our community members. So if you have any questions, you want to talk travel, you just want to say hello to us, we're always here. Feel free to send us an email to hello@explore-x.com. And as always, please feel free, and we invite you to follow us on social media at GoExploreX.
Awesome. Hey, you guys, Robin here with a few housekeeping notes. We are going to try and keep this as close to 1 hour as we can today. We're recording this. We'll be sending out the link to everyone who registered afterwards. And if you have any questions, please feel free to pop them in the Q&A or the chat box below, and we'll get to those throughout.
Awesome. Thank you, Robin. So as I mentioned a few minutes ago, we have the real pleasure of being joined today by our good friend, Maria Baltazi, Dr. Maria Baltazi, I should say. Maria is a world traveler. She is a 7-continent long-distance walker. She's an Emmy-winning television show producer, which for most people would be plenty and more than enough, but Maria doesn't stop there. She is a happiness and well-being mentor. She leads workshops. She leads transformational travel experiences. She leads retreats focused on happiness, and conscious-centered living. And of course, naturally, she teaches mindfulness, primordial sound meditation, prayer of the heart, and restorative yin yoga. Maria, did I miss anything?
That was a pretty comprehensive list. Actually, what I teach is mindful movement as opposed to yin or restorative.
Okay, well, I apologize for that. But anyway, it's good to have you. Good to see you again.
Well, thank you. It's always great to see you and chat with you.
I know, I love it. My only disappointment today is that we have to cap this at an hour, because I know we can go much longer than that. So, how are things in Los Angeles?
Things are okay. It's sunny. I'm not smelling the smoke as much, even though the fires are they're still going, but a little bit south of me. So I can actually get out into the foothills and be hiking again.
Oh, that sounds lovely. That sounds lovely. Yeah, as I mentioned before, I'm up here in the Cascades up at a friend's cabin and enjoying the snow and the cool weather, and it's lots of trees, and there's a river here. It's lovely. It's lovely. So tell us more. How have you been navigating your way through the pandemic? What have you been up to in the past?
Well, I have to say I am very blessed, even though I live in Los Angeles, a huge city, obviously. However, I can walk out my back door and inside of 20 minutes be in the foothills. I have Griffith Park that's right next to me. So I hike a lot. I hike a lot anyways, but even more so right now. And that has done a lot for my mental well-being, as well as being continuing to be very vigilant about my meditation. And I try to limit the news that I take in. I listen to very specific sources, and I look for the good every day. Every day I end my day by thinking about 3 good things that have happened that day. And as I move through the day, and when I start to get off kilter about something, I try to look for something constructive about people often refer to positive thinking, and I actually prefer the idea of constructive thinking. You see the situation as it is now, and what can you do about it? What can you control? As opposed to spiraling out in all of the things that you can't control. So those are the things that have been keeping my sanity and my spirits uplifted.
Yeah, guys, see already there's like 9 things I want to talk to you about, and you've just been chatting for 2 minutes. Like what you're talking about there, like I recently came across this idea of neutral thinking, right? Where it's like a lot of us tend to like dwell in the past and like, all right, this has happened in the past, this is going to happen to me again. Or I'm going to think positively and put all this great energy out, and you should do that. But it also sort of, for many people, it saps them of like responsibility and accountability for doing things. So I love the idea of neutral thinking or constructive thinking, which is just, this is where I am, this is the situation, what do I want and how do I make it happen?
Well, and to that point of neutral thinking, there's something very valid about doing that. Because when you consider any situation, the situation in and of itself is neutral. The charge it has is the one that you give it. And so I think that that's something that most people don't realize, because they are just getting engulfed in their emotions and their thoughts and thinking that that's the reality. But the reality is that event is neutral. And that's why there's so often you hear, time heals, that as you get distance from it, as you get perspective from it, your thoughts around that event has changed. The event itself has not changed. Your thoughts have. So I think that there's something very valid to what you're saying in terms of neutral thinking.
Somebody once said that, we're, as human beings, we are meaning-making machines.
Yes.
We'll take anything that happens to us, somebody cutting us off in traffic or whatever, we assign and create so much meaning and create stories around all of that when it's just meaningless.
Well, here's something else that, all thoughts have energy, and they release a chemical reaction. Well, that chemical reaction only takes 90 seconds. Any emotion that you have takes 90 seconds to filter through your body. So what keeps that going is that you keep reliving it and reliving it and reliving it until you consciously make a choice to have a different thought.
Yeah, and one of the things that as I was preparing for this, and you use a statistic in some of your literature that I've used often before, right? Is that we typically have an average of 60,000 thoughts per day, right? And on any given day, 95% of those repeat day to day to day to day. And here's the point: 80% of those are negative.
And the thoughts that you had yesterday and the day before and the day before and the day before that. That's where becoming aware and conscious of your thoughts are so important. And practices like mindfulness really help.
Yeah, right. And as we were recently talking, it's how do you create, Stephen Covey would say that our responsibility, our ability to like step in and create space between stimulus and response, right? So that we can get into that neutral thinking, right? Or that constructive thinking and say, okay, this is what's happening. What do I want to happen? What do I need to do now to make that happen? Instead of just reacting, but we can mindfully respond, right?
Right, and that's where training your mind and understanding. I mean, that's the big light bulb that goes off when you start to get into meditation, and more specifically mindfulness, is that light bulb that goes off that says, just because I'm having a thought doesn't mean that I have to believe it. It doesn't mean that I am it. It doesn't mean that will always be there, you know, and just having that realization of the impermanence of your thoughts is very liberating, because you know that in that gap that you just described is an opportunity to make a different choice.
Right. Yeah, it reminds me of sort of the idea of the observer, right? Like when we can sort of step out of our own brains and be like, "Ooh, that's interesting. Like I'm thinking or feeling this. Like how interesting, how cool, how fascinating," right? Versus being so, you know, in it that you don't see it from that sort of objective perspective.
Right, you're in the forest instead of on the edge of it looking, or you're inside the waterfall, you know, where just your thoughts are the torrent of the waterfall. And you know, when you can step back and look at that waterfall objectively, then that's when you can make decisions, that you can choose thoughts that are more constructive, that are more useful.
Absolutely. I want to continue this line of thinking, but I actually, before we even do that, I want to step back a little bit, and ask you a couple questions, just sort of about how you got to where you are now, because this isn't what you didn't grow up doing this work, right? I mean, you grew up in different industries and different other forms of adventure. So I guess first question would be, you know, I know that travel has played a central role in your life. Where did your sense of wanderlust come from?
Oh, well, my sense of wanderlust is generational. I mean, if you really want to go back into my family history, my grandfather fled from Russia on foot, and he left Odessa and crossed all of Russia, fleeing for political reasons. And so he would walk at night and sleep in cemeteries during the day for safety. And then my father traveled quite a bit when he was young. He actually went to the Cameroons and thought he was going to stay there. And he got a very bad case of malaria and had to return to Europe. And so just the idea of travel has always been part of just our existence.
Mm. And so what was your first international travel or first really memorable, life-changing travel experience?
Well, my first travel experience, which was memorable, I was 14, and my parents are Greek. They were both raised in Greece. My parents each had a Greek mother, even though their fathers were from different countries. So our first trip, international trip and trip as a family, was to Greece, and that certainly offered an interesting perspective that I hadn't had, you know, growing up in a Greek family in the United States versus growing up and seeing your Greek family in Greece is a whole nother experience. So, yeah, that was quite memorable, but truly one of the most memorable experiences as an adult traveling. I produced television for, and still do, for many years, and most of the shows that I've done have been at international destinations, and in particular, Africa. And the very first time that I went to Africa, I was on assignment to be there for 2 weeks getting stories. And one of the things that I experienced when I first went out into the bush is that we were at a water hole, and this water hole, you just saw a whole hierarchy of the animals. So inside in the water hole were the elephants, and the elephants, you know, they had the entire water hole. They're splashing around and trumpeting and spraying their babies, and meanwhile, queued up, and it was this long queue of zebra that were all just kind of, you know, waiting. And there was this lone giraffe that wanted to get near that water hole. And so the giraffe was trying to blend in with the zebra. And so you would see this giraffe and kind of looking around, thinking nobody's paying any attention to him, and you'd see him take a little step. And then he'd do the same thing, look around, he'd take another little step, and he's trying to inch his way closer to the water. And then when he thought that he was getting busted, then you would see him backtrack. And just watching that in front of my eyes just unfolding, and the animals aren't even impacted by us. I mean, we were, a very respectable distance away, but just their life going on was just so magical to me, and just seeing, your first elephant, your first lion, and your first African sunset, it just, everything was just epic and so unique for me. And that was also coupled with knowing that my father had malaria in Africa. When I landed, I was mortified that the same thing would happen to me. And initially, I just didn't even want to get out of the vehicle. I didn't want to touch anything. But I was just so enamored with the bush and the animals and just the beautiful light and all of the things that I was experiencing, that by the time that I left, what was meant to be 2 weeks ended up by being 11 weeks. And I'm jumping out of vehicles, I'm chasing after things. And I am today a different human being because of that trip.
Wow, that's a powerful statement.
Yeah.
And was that on Survivor, or was that a different show?
A completely different show. It was an animal show that you would do different stories. One, it was an hour, and inside of an hour, you could have maybe 6 different animal stories from around the world.
Got it. So I think the one show that most people would recognize would be Survivor. Tell us about that a little bit, and I've got some specific questions for you about that after you.
Well, Survivor, that came along when that type of programming didn't exist. So we just were creating a show based on what we thought would make the best show, the most entertaining. So we didn't have a roadmap to creating that show. We just put together a show as producers that we thought people would enjoy. And there was no way you would have known or prepared for the phenomena that hit that first and second season. I mean, we were getting at the time Super Bowl numbers, and that is not an exaggeration. Literally, we were getting Super Bowl numbers.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how many years did you work on that show?
So I did a total of 7 seasons, over almost 5 years, something like that.
Okay. Which of the destinations was most memorable for you?
Boy, that's a hard one to say, because you had the first one, which was in Borneo, and so there's something special about that being the first season. And I guess if I was going to pick one, it would be the very first season, because there were so many unknowns.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. What did you?
Each one had its own specialness to it.
Yeah.
It's like asking a parent to choose their favorite child.
Have you been back to Borneo? Have you been back to Borneo since then?
I have not. But that's not true. So what was interesting is, before I got brought on to Survivor, I had, for that animal show that I was telling you about, I had gone to Borneo. So really, on that team of producers, I was the only one who had actually been to Borneo fairly recently. And then as soon as, so when I was doing the show, I always did the very last show, the finale.
Okay.
That led into the live voting of the votes. And that first season, I literally handed in the last episode of season 1 where Richard won and got on a plane. Like 90 minutes later, I was on a plane going back to Borneo, though this time I was going to produce Eco Challenge, which has been resurrected on Amazon Prime as the world's toughest race with Bear Grylls.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll
So instead of like 6 months, something like that, 9 months, I went to Borneo 3 times.
Oh, wow. I'm sure we'll get lots of questions after this about how to start a career in, reality / adventure television. So be prepared for for a bunch of those.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this: what, if you were to pinpoint maybe 1 or 2 or 3 things that you really learned that you took away from that experience producing Survivor or any of your other shows in terms of television production, and how that connects with what you're doing now, what would those lessons be?
The thing that always struck me, because I was doing the last episode for all of the seasons that I was there, is when you would get to the end or towards the end, I would start to hear this in interviews is, oh, this really isn't me. This is me just playing a game. And I would always think, this is so you. Or you wouldn't be making these choices. But what you're not recognizing is that while this is you, it can only be you. You just have not been put in a situation that brought out this aspect of you.
Right.
Yeah. So we all have these different shades to our personality. Mm-hmm. And we can pick and choose which shade we show to people. And our circumstances will shape how what shade that we're showing people. And so I think that's why one of the reasons that I think it's so important to have self-awareness. To know what are your boundaries, what situations are good for you, aren't good for you, because they will be triggers. They will bring out different shades to your personality that you may not want to show people.
Right. Yeah, you know what? I know you have a PhD and I've got a doctorate as well. And one of the things that came up, maybe the biggest thing that I learned from doing my research, was that this idea of physical disconnection, right? Going from one place to another, opened up so much space for, sort of emotional disconnection, right? From all the stuff that was going on at home. And therefore it gave us this blank space to lean into and create, right? And I've mentioned several times on this, it's when you're in that space, right? The parts of your brain that are more closely or most closely associated with imagination and creativity are what are firing more often than the logic centers of your brain, right? So this is one of the reasons why these people probably on your show, or the people that we talk to, are our travelers, our community members, all talk about feeling and acting differently when they're traveling than they do when they're at home, right? Because they are parts of your personality. They are parts of who you are, but they're parts that, as you said, sort of remain in the shadows, right? They remain hidden in your day-to-day life. And yet when given the opportunity, people, 1, lean into them, and 2, I often hear that those attitudes, behaviors, and mindsets that they embody while traveling are more empowered, more energizing, more than the ones that they live at home. So then the question becomes, how do you take that approach, that mindset, that energy that you use when you're traveling, and bring that back to your day-to-day life, right? To live that more inspired and passionate, integrated life.
Well, I think one of the ways you do that is by savoring. And when you and you can do this in your normal your everyday life, but when you're traveling, to really take in those moments and absorb them. Yeah, I have studied a lot with Dr. Rick Hansen, and that's one of the strategies that he talks about in terms of creating positive neural pathways is savoring. You're retraining your brain to recognize what is positive. So when you're out traveling, you really stop talking during the sunset, and you really take that sunset in, and you absorb it, and you appreciate it, and you see its beauty, and you feel the sensations in your body, and you just, for at least 20 to 30 seconds, you absorb that in. And if you do that enough during your trip, then when you come home, you have this whole storehouse of great memories that you can plug into, you can remember, and bring that into your life. So if something isn't going so great that day, you can remember that sunset that you enjoyed so much. And it's kind of like having your own internal best friend who's soothing you.
So how do we, as travelers, how do we remember? How do we become more mindful of savoring those moments? Right? I mean,
you have guides like us.
I mean, are there any specific things that you do or that you would recommend, like just to put leave your phone at home, for example, right? I know one thing that I'm guilty of is I end up taking more photos or spend more time taking photos of a pretty sunset than I do actually sitting there enjoying it, right? So like, what are some things that you like to do that really help you savor those moments?
Well, I take conscious stops. I mean, I take conscious pause, and when I take those moments, I am not talking to anybody. I am really being very present to that moment, at least for a short amount of time. You know, I think what helps you, I mean, you can have a journal that has reminders, you know, what are you grateful for today? You know, you can have those kind of prompts that are in your journal to remind you. And you can also just consciously make those choices. Yeah, I'm so used to making those choices that I don't really need to think about it, because I just do it.
Right. It's well, this is why we talk about travel being a practice, right? It's something
Right.
that you have to, you know, it's like going to the mental gym, right? Or the travel gym. So you've got to think about these things initially, and then eventually it becomes sort of muscle memory, right? Like, all right, I'm going to put the
Right.
phone away, or get the journal out, or whatever that might be.
Yeah, and I think it's also how you prepare for your trip. That when you are getting things together, that you have that moment where you sit down and you make a plan. It's just, every day I'm going to be grateful for something. You know, every day I'm going to point to 3 good moments. Every day, you know, you make what that plan is. I am not going to look at my phone between these hours and these hours. I'm not going to have my phone, you know, when I'm eating. So you make choices before you even go on to the road.
Sure. Yeah, and you know, just as a quick plug, I mean, we had you know, David Alport, good friend of ours. He was on a few months ago, and he did a Wisdom of Wanderlust about the superpower of setting intention. So he talks a lot. So for those of you that are watching this live or the recording, go back and check that one out too, because David talks a lot about your mindsets, your mantras, thinking about, you know, where am I now? in life, what's working, what's not, and what would I like to get out of this experience, whether it's something very specific or just sort of an emotion or a feeling. And then to your point, Maria, finding a pathway for yourself each and every day, whether it's a morning meditation or exercising or journaling or whatever, just bringing a certain mindset approach, practicing curiosity while I'm traveling on this,
Yeah, I mean, everybody learns differently. And one practice that works for me may not work for you. So I think that in your travel planning, understanding what are the things that you want to do, because you want to create things that help you to appreciate your journey and help you reflect on your journey, that these are things that you want to do. Because if you view them as things that are more like a chore, then you're not going to do them.
Sure.
So having that experimentation and understanding as part of your travel prep, I think is a good thing.
For sure. And, without getting, infomercially here, I think one of the things that helps or makes ExploreX stand out is that we don't just, air quote, just plan your travel experience, right? We're there to guide and support you beforehand, right? With coaches like Maria, like David, like myself, right? Helping you set intention, helping you understand what you'd like to get out of this and how you can actually make that happen in a way that fits and works for you based on your personality and interest in those kinds of things. And then of course we also do the travel design part, and right, sort of thinking about your part about sort of ending, the Survivor series, right? It's also about coming home, right? It's about the return, and what do you do when you get back, right? And how do you integrate some of these things in your day-to-day life, right? And so, with ExploreX, again, it goes well beyond just, air quote, just the travel experience to how are you preparing for it, and then how are you using it, integrating and applying what you've gotten from that experience into your life to really, this is why we say travel better, live better, or the ultimate goal of all of this, is to come back and enhance and improve the experience of life that we're having, right?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I follow a similar philosophy myself.
So tell us about that. Tell us, one, what you're up to, specifically now, the work that you're doing at Sojourn Experience, and maybe even stepping back, how you got from television producing as a main focus of your career to mindfulness and Sojourn Experience.
Well, the shows that I have been doing are generally very complicated and challenging for a myriad of reasons. Anything from just the sheer size of the team to the logistics of going from one end of a country to another end of the country. Yeah, there's just a lot that when you are running a show that you have to be responsible for. And I was finding that just the stress, the demands of doing big shows, big complicated shows was just wearing on me. I was just finding that I was so empathetic to whatever the situation was going on, that people's stuff were now becoming my stuff, and it wasn't healthy for me. And so I did not want to stay in that position. And so I started reading and I started doing courses, and the more I got into it, the more I liked it, and the more benefit that I received from it, the more I started to shift to actually want to get a degree and teach.
What kind of things were you reading?
Oh gosh, I was reading stuff from business books, the Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Successful People, Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich, 7 Spiritual Laws of Success, the 4 Agreements, and on and on. I mean,
you're reading off my bookshelf here.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure. So Yeah, I was just reading a lot, and anytime I saw a course that looked interesting to me, I was signing up for it. And I still do that. I am always enrolled in some course. I think I'll always be that way. That thirst for knowledge and just
Lifelong learner, huh?
yeah.
So
Well,
you,
it keeps you motivated and keeps you stimulated, and it also it also reminds me of what has now become my mission to help people think more constructively. So even though I make television and I will always love storytelling and imagery and all of that, it's also a personal mission to work in particular with creative professionals, entrepreneurs and leaders in terms of helping them think more productively. So
you, again, I want to be mindful of our time here, so I'm going to move. I've got so many questions for you. So you're doing all this learning and reading and coursework, and how did you find yourself in a PhD program? Or am I skipping ahead too far?
No. Actually, for a long time, I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to do a PhD because I didn't want to go into an academic environment. And I didn't want to go into an academic environment because I wanted to stay heart-centered. And knowing how I am, I knew that if I got into an academic environment, I would go straight to here. And I wanted to be here. And I finally found a program that satisfied all my needs. I could study what I wanted, when I wanted, how I wanted. I could do it my way. Right. So I had already done so much coursework at that point that just felt like the next step. And I found a circumstance that fit my needs. I wouldn't recommend it for everybody. That's just, even when I went to film school, I didn't want to go to an academic school. I went to an art school because I wanted to be around other creative people. So I went to Art Center College of Design in California. So my mode of learning has been very specific, and a lot of it has been self-directed and motivated, because I really love this stuff, and I really care, and I really want to help. I just made a decision that whatever access, talent, skill, time, whatever it is, I wanted in service to a greater good.
Yeah, right. And theory without practice is, it's fine.
It's theory.
Right. but for folks like you and I and a lot of the people connected to ExploreX, it's about, taking that theory and applying it through practice to our lives and learning from that until we're dead. Right. So what did you study in your PhD program?
The specialization is conscious-centered living. So a lot of that was studying different practices from different cultures. It was studying different modes of meditation. Interwoven with that was some positive psychology and spiritual psychology.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And what was your dissertation on specifically?
Happiness.
On happiness.
Yeah, it was on happiness, which I have turned into a book.
Oh, plug it for us, please.
Well, no, it's still, I just, I completed the book and I just got an agent for the book, so.
Oh, that's amazing. Congratulations.
So we'll see. More to come on that one.
Speaking selfishly, can I get an advance copy?
Maybe. Nice to meet.
Okay, awesome. So your research was on happiness. How do you define happiness?
Well, for me, happiness is a state of being, and it's when your thoughts and your actions are in harmony with a healthy body. And when I say a healthy body, it's mind, body, and spirit. So everything is in alignment. Yeah. So I And there's a debate of whether happiness is a subset of joy, or is joy a subset of happiness, and which is fleeting and which is more permanent. And for me, it's happiness. And yes, you have that giddy, oh, this makes me feel so good and happy. However, the way I look at happiness and describing it as a state of being is that you still see the realities of life. You're not looking at the things through rose-colored glasses. You see the ups and the downs, but what you know and you're very clear about is that your baseline, you are happy, you are content, you have a purpose, you have clarity, and that this emotional, it's not staying. Right. You have the wherewithal to get yourself back to center, instead of continuing to spiral out.
Right. Yeah. It sounds like what I would refer to that as maybe a peace, the sort of sense of peace, but
that's part of it.
Semantics, yeah, maybe, perhaps. But so you mentioned positive psychology. Did you study a lot of Martin Seligman's stuff?
Yeah.
Cool. And he's right. He's talking about flourishing. I don't know if you follow.
Right. Yeah, he's moved on from flow. With Michael domain, that's very long to say. Yes, from flow on to flourishing. Yes.
Oh, Csikszentmihalyi?
Yes. Thank you.
You're welcome. I've practiced that.
Good. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So what is the foundation then of happiness? What's the root of that?
Well, a lot of them are for me, they're the qualities that you bring in, that you find that are important to you. They're things like your faith, love, gratitude, forgiveness, it's those kinds of things. And I think that while there are certain fundamentals that I feel go across the board, I think the nuance of it then becomes very individualized. So, maybe for me, faith is number one for happiness, but perhaps, for you, it's love.
Sure.
Yeah.
So what are the fundamentals? What are the pillars that are sort of consistent throughout?
You have to read my book.
Well done. By the way, I also meant to plug your 8 Good Things. So do you want to take a second to do that before I forget?
Yeah. So every 3 weeks, I put out a newsletter that's called 8 Good Things, and it is as it implies. The name implies it's 8 good things, and there are articles that cover travel, they cover well-being, and they also cover storytelling. So,
and where can one register to receive or sign up to receive this email?
You can go to the sojournexperience.org, and you can fill out a form online, okay. Or hopefully you'll put something in the chat. I have a couple of links that if you go to those links and sign up for 8 Good Things, then you can get my love, gratitude, meditation PDF and recording. And then I also have a free self-paced 6-module happiness and the art of life balance course that people can have access to.
Wow. So what we're going to do, I see Robin put a link in the chat there. There's a lot of folks that sign up for these that can't attend live. So what we're going to do is send out an email, and we'll put some of these links in there so people that are watching this afterwards can be sure to go on and register. All right, so we only have a few minutes here, and I got 19 more questions for you. What role does mindfulness play in happiness?
Well, I think of mindfulness as our wellness silver bullet. I mean, so many things can come out of mindfulness by just becoming still enough to connect with yourself and then open your awareness. And when you are doing all of these things, so many good things are also happening inside your body. You're building your immune system, and you're becoming healthier. And when all of those things are working, your relationships are getting better as well, because you have taken care of your inner world, so you can be better in terms of handling your outer world. So I think it's I call mindfulness a tool. It's a mind tool that one uses to help in their happiness path.
So taking theory to practice here, let's say someone who's new to or has never really thought about a mindful living approach. What's one thing that they can do? What's one basic, simple thing that people can do to begin practicing their mindfulness?
Well, it's one of the things that when you first get exposed to mindfulness that is taught, which is mindful eating, where you take a raisin and literally you look at it from all angles, and you eventually touch it, and then you put it into your mouth, and you take a very long time appreciating it in your mouth before you actually swallow it. And what you're doing in the process is that you are connecting to the different sensations. You're becoming aware to the different sensations and what those sensations are bringing up in terms of your emotions, and what those emotions are triggering in your mind. And so that's a very fundamental way of just becoming, aware, becoming, mindful of something, an act that you are doing, that you are consciously taking your time with it. And then you can also get into, well, where does that raisin come from? Where was it grown, and who picked it, and how did it get shipped to you and get on your grocery shelf? And so that's a nice practice to at least have experienced a few times. But the real thing is just starting with simple things and noticing how they are feeling and emotions that they're causing. Another thing that you can do is just start at the crown of your head and make your way slowly down through your body, and just noticing any felt sensations, and noticing, where are you holding tension? Is it around your eyes? Is it around your mouth? Is it in your belly? Just getting in touch with where things are happening inside of you.
Yeah, there's so many things here. We're gonna absolutely have you back, because we didn't even touch about your inner sanctuary. We didn't touch on happiness, set points. There's so many things that I want to discuss with you, Maria, but I do want to be mindful of time here. Most of the stuff that you're talking about, you mentioned a bunch of resources that people can find and get through the links that we'll send them, including coursework. I also wanted to mention that, you, Amanda, and I have been working behind the scenes to identify some courses that we'll be offering exclusively through ExploreX as well, related to this type of thing, and how to bring mindfulness and meditation and happiness and that approach to travel before, during, and after your experiences. So we'll be working on that and launching those in early 2021. So just a note to everyone to stay tuned for that. We have a few things I want to talk about. The Camino, Amanda's going to walk us through that briefly. I think, Robin, do you have some rapid fire questions too today?
No, we're skipping rapid fire today because I knew we would have too much other stuff to get to.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let me end this conversation with one.
Uh-oh, we lost Michael.
Oh boy. Well, I think what he was probably going to ask. Oh, is he back?
Go for it.
Is it what correct me if I'm wrong, but what if you have any words of wisdom that you'd like to leave our listeners with.
Yep.
My words of wisdom are that, you really can choose and design the life that you want. And the key here is the word choose. If you want it, you can create it. And to really believe that is true, that whatever the perceived obstacles may be, whether it's finances, your geography, physical limitations, age, gender, whatever, if you look into history, if you look into even what's going on now, you see people who are creating amazing lives out of circumstances that you would think they would never get out of. And so that is the thing that I'd like to leave people with, is that you can have the life that you want. You just have to define it, choose it, and act on it.
Well said. Well said. Thank you, Maria, for that. Thank you for everything. This has been wonderful chatting with you.
Thank you. This has been super fun. Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, we say this often, but we will have you back for sure, and continue this conversation, because there's way too much that we haven't explored yet. So thank you. And for everyone that's attending or listening later, thanks again for being here. Robin is going to send a follow-up email with all the links and some of the additional resources for you as well. If you have any questions for Maria, best email address would be maria@explorer-x.com. Again, any generic questions or general travel questions for our team at ExplorerX, please send them to hello@explorer-x.com. Be sure to follow us on social media at GoExplorerX. Oh, we got to plug the Camino. Sorry, Amanda, you're looking at me with a funny face. We got to plug the Camino. Let's do it. Sorry.
It's okay. We're still finalizing the details, but the dates are planned for September 19th to the 29th. It's walking the final stage of the Camino de Santiago. And it's the last bit of it, which normally people will do over about 5 days, but we've extended it to 7 days of walking to really get time and energy to explore the little villages and everything along the way. So we're really excited for that and have more details coming soon. Maria, did you want to add a little bit of a plug for that?
Yeah, I've now done taking people on the Camino, more than once. And the thing that I love about the Camino, it is such a beautiful metaphor for how life could be lived. Because when you walk the Camino, you see every age possible out there. I've seen parents with baby strollers, and it's something that is very doable. And you also feel that there is such a welcoming, that you can go up to anybody that you're walking alongside and just start a conversation. Or when you stop to have coffee, you can sit and chat at a stranger's table, and people are just so gracious and wanting to help, and it's just such a heartwarming experience. And many of the homes that live along the Camino, they just offer food to the pilgrims. When you walk the Camino, you're considered a pilgrim. And some of the homes will put out, a big table. They have breads and cheeses and fruits and meats, and they're not charging. If you want to leave something as a gratitude, you can, but it's not expected. And so it's just that spirit of generosity and welcoming that is just such a beautiful experience, and like I said, a model for how we could live.
Awesome. So we'll I know, Robin, I know you and Amanda got to get out of here, but we'll send a link to and more information about the Camino in the follow-up email. And then lastly, next Wednesday, we have our team in New Zealand here to chat about all things New Zealand. And Amanda, I'm sure you're looking forward to that one as well, since you lived there for at least the better part of a year, huh?
Yeah.
So, and that'll be at 5 p.m. Pacific. So please stay tuned for that. You can get more information and register on our website on the events tab as well. So, Maria, thank you. You're awesome.
Thank you.
Lots of love, and we'll look forward to talking to you soon.
No, very much appreciated. Thank you for all of you and everything that you did to coordinate this.
Oh, no problem. Lots of love. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, you guys. Thanks, Maria.
Thank you.